Hello and welcome to this extra problem solving session for the NPTEL course on environmental impact assessment. This is going to be the last session, problem solving session for this course from me. So this course has been taught by Dr. Harshit Soshan Lakra, Assistant Professor at Department of Architecture and Planning, Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee. I am Isha Rathore, PMRF and Research Scholar, Department of Architecture and Planning, IIT Roorkee. So a few housekeeping rules before we begin the session. Please mute yourself for the session. If you have any questions or if you want to post the answers, you can put them in the chat box. At different points during this session, I will ask you to, if you have any queries, so then you can either unmute yourself or raise your hand to ask questions. So the outline of the session, because this is the summary session for the overall course. We will look up at first the format of the examination paper, which you will see, final examinations which you will be giving in the coming few weeks. Then we will look up at the overview of the course week-wise, what was discussed, and then we will do some additional questions and answers from the course for your revisions. So the format of the final examination is such that you will get MCQ or MSQ questions. So you will either have multiple choice questions or multi-select questions. So in multiple choice questions or MCQs, there's going to be only one option which is correct, and you can only select one option while you are selecting from the other options. Whereas in the MSQ, the multi-select question, more than one option can be correct, and this will be indicated. They will be written that these are multi-select questions, and you will have, instead of radio buttons, you will have check boxes, so you can select more than one options. And the type of questions which you can expect in the examination, final examinations, are as you have seen in the assignment questions as well. So they will be either state true or false statements where you can select the options as true or false, or they can be fill in the blanks where the fill in the blanks options are given in the ABCD format. Match the following where you need to select the order in which these questions are going to be the columns match. And the correct ordering, that is how does particular steps work, or what is the order, one comes first or three comes second and things like that. So that is the correct ordering kind of questions which you can get. And similar to what we have seen in the assignments, these kind of questions can be expected. So now let's look up at the overview of the course. So in week one, we looked up at the state of global environment, where we looked up at environmental parameters of air, biodiversity, ocean and coasts, and fresh water. So here we looked up at the general conditions and the general quality of the environment based on these parameters, and the concerns and introductions we have seen to them. Then in week two, we looked up at definition, process, and purpose of EIA from different sources. Then we looked up at EIA impact areas, current and emerging. So two modules were discussed in the EIA impact areas, current and emerging. And we then looked up at EIA origin in USA and worldwide development, as well as EIA in India. So how EIA has emerged based on what events this was triggered in US as well as in India. We saw that in week two. Week three, we looked up at the World Sustainable Development Timeline. So this was divided into two modules where we looked up between 1970 to 1999. And from 2000s to 2021, we looked up at two separate World Sustainable Development Timelines. So whatever major events, laws, guidelines, and groups or committees have emerged has all been discussed in this module. Then we looked up at law, policy, and institutional arrangements for EIA systems pertaining to air assessments. In week four, we looked up at, again, law, policy, and institutional arrangements for EIA systems. So we discussed what legislative laws and policies have emerged based on each of these particular environmental systems, environmental parameters, and what sort of institutional support or arrangements are there when you go forward for doing EIA relating to these particular aspects in your development project. So week four, we looked up at the law, policy, and institutional arrangements for water, soil, land, and geology, ecology, coastal ecology and geomorphology, noise, and ecosystem services. So we covered all of these in depth. Then week 5 again we looked up at law, policy, and institutional arrangements for EIA systems. But this time we looked up at parameters like cultural heritage and health, land acquisition, resettlement, and livelihood, land acquisition in the Indian context, the socioeconomic impacts assessment, and the resource efficiency, and transport landscape and visual systems. Okay. Then week 6 was EIA process. So now we moved on towards EIA process. We looked up at the different stages in the EIA process, starting and the initial stage, then impact prediction, impact evaluation, mitigation and enhancement, participation, presentation and review, and the follow-up stage, which is monitoring and auditing. So we discussed all the aspects relating to the EIA process in week 6 in each of the separate lectures which were covered in week 6. Week 7, we looked up at EIA methods pertaining to air, water, soil, land, and geology and climate change. So we discussed how we go about doing EIA for each of these environmental parameters if they are relevant for your particular project development site. Week 8, again, we looked up at EIA methods, continuing the discussion with climate change, which we saw in week 7 as well, then ecology and ecosystem services. Week 9, again, we were discussing EIA methods for ecosystem services, coastal ecology and geomorphology, noise and transport. And week 10, we continued EIA methods for landscape and visuals, cultural heritage, health, socioeconomic impacts. Week 11, we continued our discussion on EIA methods for land acquisition, resettlement, and livelihoods, resource efficiency, risk and risk assessment, and cumulative effects. We also discussed the environmental management plans, or EMPs. And in week 12, we looked up at strategic environmental assessment, SEA, the EIA reporting and review of EIA quality. So how EIA reporting is done and how it's being reviewed. And then lastly, we looked up at EIA case examples. So we looked up at 2 case examples, which was one, the Mumbai Metro Line 3 project, and the second was the water aerodrome project in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Okay, so this is a brief overview of what was discussed in throughout the NPTEL course on environmental impact and assessment. So a few things which I would advise you to go through these when you're going through these modules is to revise the definitions which different sources have cited for the particular term. So different definitions of, let's say, EIA, what is the definition of biodiversity, and all of these other things which have come up in each of these lecture units. Then any full forms of abbreviations, short forms, if they have been used, like EIA itself is environmental impact assessment, then CPCB, different agencies, abbreviations, what do they mean, UNEP. So all of these full forms of abbreviations can also come in your final examination. So please make a note to revise them or to remember them. Then key dates, especially relating to week 3, where we looked up at the World Sustainable Development Timeline. So during that time, we looked up at lots of legislation and laws and guidelines and conferences which were happening. So those dates and years are relevant when EIA originated in the USA, in India, what guideline was relevant. So all of those key dates are also something which can come in your final examinations. Then another thing which you can revise is the key legislative laws and guidelines, again from week 3, because that was a very intensive week for based on historical development and origin of EIA. So we looked up at lots of legislative laws and guidelines, committees, conferences, events, workshops, and things like that, worldwide as well as in India. So make a note of what happened when, and what does each of these legislative laws, with for which environmental parameters these legislative laws are applicable to, what treaties have India signed or ratified. So all of those are again something which can come in your final examination. Then steps or orders, like what is the steps in the EIA process, what is the steps in SCA process, how do you go about doing EIA method for water, for geomorphology, and all of those are again important steps which you need to remember. Next is important reference documents, so guidelines and things which came up, or reference documents, best practice, case studies, and things like that. So those reference documents or books which stated a particular concept. So those are again important reference documents. So you should revise these based on each lecture unit you have watched. And next is methods of study. Again, for different environmental parameters, what was the method of study? What methods were used in desk-based review? What was used in fieldwork surveys? What are the different methods of doing surveys and things like that for different environmental parameters? So all of these can be revised for your final examination. Similarly, for simulations, if simulation was used, what softwares are relevant for which environmental parameter? Then, if there were any calculations or formulas, especially when we were discussing the unit on noise, there were a lot of formulas. So, make a note to remember these formulas and what are the different terms in the formulas. So, these are all the things which can come in your final examinations. So please try to revise them as you go through the course content and your notes again. Okay, so now let's move on to the question and answer. So here we will go about all of these questions. So these are questions which are based on the course content. Okay, so the first question is the case of Santa Barbara was related with A, oil spill, B, air pollution, C, noise pollution, or D, forest fire. Okay, so the correct answer for this is oil spill. That is the case of Santa Barbara was related to this hazard, which was because of oil spilling because out of this ship. So the correct answer is A, that is oil spill. So Santa Barbara is related with oil spill. The next question is which of the following is not an air pollutant? A, PM10, B, PM2.5, C, ground level ozone, or D, stratospheric ozone. Okay, so the correct answer is D, that is stratospheric ozone, whereas is not an air pollutant. Whereas A, B, and C, that is particulate matter 10, particulate matter 2.5, and ground level ozone are all air pollutants. So the correct answer is D, that is stratospheric ozone is not an air pollutant. Okay, moving on to the next question. Match the theme in Group A with a descriptive picture in Group B. So in Group A, we have terms like ecosystem diversity, species diversity, and genetic diversity. And in Group B, we have images which show different uh, forms of diversities. So you need to match Group A with Group B. So here we see that ecosystem diversity matches with C. So you can see two or three different kinds of ecosystem. You have the water ecosystem, the marine ecosystem, then you have the forest ecosystem, grassland ecosystem. So you see different types of ecosystems existing together. So this image depicts ecosystem diversity. Then Q matches with 2, that is species diversity. So you see different types of plants, different species of animals, mammals, fungi, and all of these. So these are different species which are existing together. So you have species diversity in this particular image. Then R matches with 1, which is genetic diversity. So these are animals of the same species, but they have different genetic composition, as you can see based on these their chromosome kind of representation. So this represents genetic diversity. So R matches with 1. So the correct answer is P matches with 3, Q matches with 2, and R matches with 1. Moving on to the next question. A mass extinction event is when species vanish much faster than they are replaced. This is usually defined as about 75% of the world's species being lost in a short amount of geological time, that is less than 2.8 million years. Is this statement true or false? So the correct answer is that the statement is true. So the given statement is true. That is a mass extinction event is when species vanish much faster than they are replaced. This is usually defined as about 75% of the world's species being lost in a short amount of geological time, that is less than 2.8 million years. Okay, moving on to the next question. Desertification is land degradation in arid, semi-arid, and dry subhumid areas resulting from various factors, including climatic variations and human activities. Is this statement true or false? So this is again from the definition of desertification. So the given statement is true. So desertification is land degradation in arid, semi-arid, and dry subhumid areas resulting from various factors, including climatic variations and human activities. So A is the correct answer. So again, you see questions on questions coming out of definitions from the lecture units. Next question, as per United Nations World Water Assessment Program WWAP 2012, water scarcity is defined as A less than 10 meter cube per capita of available renewable fresh water per year, B less than 100 meter cube per capita of available renewable fresh water per year, C less than 1000 meter cube per capita of available renewable fresh water per year, or D less than 10,000 meter cube per capita of available renewable fresh water per year. So this is again a definition-based question. So the definition of water scarcity coming out of United Nations WWAP program. So the correct definition of water scarcity is defined as when you have less than 1000 meter cube per capita of available renewable fresh water per year. So C is the correct answer. Moving on, next question. In India, Environment Protection Act was enabled in which year? A, 1976, B, 1958, C, 1986, or D, 1972? So the correct answer is C, that is 1986. So we have the Environmental Protection Act in India, which was enacted in 1986 with the objective of providing for the protection and improvement of the environment, and it empowers the central government to establish authorities charged with the mandate of preventing environmental pollution in all its forms and to tackle specific environmental problems that are peculiar to different parts of the country. And this act was last amended in 1991. So, in India, the EPA, Environmental Protection Act, was enacted in 1986. So, C is the correct answer. Moving on to the next question, expand CPCB. So, this is again a question on abbreviations. So expand CPCB, the options are A, Climate and Pollution Control Board, B, Central Pollution Control Board, C, Center for Pollution and Climate Behavior, or D, Climate and Planet Conservation Board. Okay, so the correct full form for CPCB is B, that is Central Pollution Control Board. So this is a statutory organization which was formed in 1976 under the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act. And the CPCB is entrusted with powers and functions under the Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act of 1981 as well. So it has two functions basically, this organization, to promote cleanliness of streams, wells, and different areas of the states by preventing any sort of water pollution, and to improve the quality of air and to prevent, control, or abate air pollution in the country. So it does two things, which is prevents water and air pollution. So the correct full form for CPCB is B, that is Central Pollution Control Board. Okay, moving on to the next question. Which transportation mode is responsible for most carbon emissions? The options are A, road, freight, and passenger, B, maritime shipping, C, aviation, or D, railways. So the correct answer for this is A, that is roads and freight. So roads and freights contribute to 45.1% of the total transport emissions. That is, so road passenger contributes 45.1, whereas road freight contributes 29.4. So passengers, any sort of passenger vehicle like motorcycles, buses, and taxis, whereas freight is anything which carries other stuff other than humans. So this is like trucks and lorries which carry different packages and things. So that contribute 29.4%. And together, road freight and passenger contribute 74.5% of the total transport emissions. Whereas your aviation contributes 11.6, maritime shipping contributes 10.6, and rail contributes 1% of emissions. Okay, so the correct answer is A, that is road, freight, and passenger are responsible for most carbon emissions as a transport mode. Moving on to the next question. So the modern environmental movement focuses on A, preservation, B, risk, C, conservation, or D, elimination. So the correct answer is this. So the environmental movement, it has moved from conservation, preservation to this. So right now, the modern environmental movement, it's focusing on this. So B is the correct answer. Which among the given options are provisioning services that people obtain from the ecosystem? So we have looked up at ecosystem services. The options are A, bioenergy, B, decomposition, C, soil formation, and D, medicine. And in the particular ecosystem services, this question is asking for provisioning services, which we get out of ecosystem. So the correct answer is D, medicine. So provisioning services include food, medicine, timber, fiber, and bioenergy. So A, bioenergy, and D, medicine are the correct answers. So this is a multi-select question. Whereas you get different other type of ecosystem services like regulating services, supporting services, and culture services. But the question asks for provisioning services. So A and D are the correct answer. Moving on to the next question. State true or false. In India, we have terms of reference, TOR, used, as used for scoping purpose. Is this statement true or false? So this statement is true. We use terms of reference when we do scoping for AIA studies. So A, true is the correct answer. Moving on to the next question. Ethical EIA process is required when issues of fairness, equity, and justice predominate. That is, when the stakeholders are willing to identify and reconcile these ethical conflicts. Is this statement true or false? Okay, so the given statement is true. That is, ethical EIA is required when issues of fairness, equity, and justice predominate. That is, when the stakeholders are willing to identify and reconcile these ethical conflicts. That is, they were feeling unfair means were taking place, or they were not feeling uh, equal in the stakeholder matrix. So they need to do an ethical EIA process. So the given statement is true. So A is the correct answer. Moving on to the next question. The cost benefit analysis CBA is seen as decision making technique in which full consequences, costs, and benefits of a course of action are summarized in money terms. Is the statement true or false? Okay, so the given statement is true. That is, the cost benefit analysis is seen as a decision making technique where we discuss the full consequences, other costs and benefits of taking an action in the form of monetary terms. So we see what is the benefit in monetary terms and what is the cost which we are incurring for doing this action. And then we do an analysis whether this project or this action is feasible or is profitable or not. So A, true is the correct answer. Moving on to the next question. State true or false, participation refers to approaches that give more active role to public in influencing the plan development and approval. Is the statement true or false? Okay, so the given statement is true. Participation is approaches that give more active role. That is approaches through which we bring the public or public opinion into the plan development and approval stages. So their voices are also heard and their concerns and grievances are also addressed. So A, true is the correct answer. Moving on to the next question. State true or false, consultation refers to exercises involving passive audience. The public view is solicited, but respondents have little active influence over any resulting decisions. Is this statement true or false? Okay, so the given statement is true. Consultation. So we looked about different forms of public participation in a particular lecture. So from that participation method, consultation has little active influence over any resulting decisions, but the public view is bought in uh, into the uh, into the decision making process, and this is done by exercises which involves passive audience, but not like active people who are constantly involved in the decision making. But these are none for passive audience. So the given statement is true. So A is the correct answer. Moving on to the next question. State true or false. Implementation monitoring involves checking that the project has been implemented in accordance with the planning approvals, that mitigation measures have been carried as proposed, and that any conditions associated with the approval have been honored. Is the statement true or false? So the given statement is true. So implementation monitoring involves checking that the project has been implemented as per the approvals that they have taken. Whatever mitigation measures they have stated in the AIA report have been carried out as proposed or as revised, and that any conditions which they have said that they will meet in their report has been actually met. So whatever conditions and so basically the report has been given due importance in the implementation also. So the given statement is true. So A is the correct answer. Moving on to the next question. What does IAIA in the context of AIA stand for? So again, this is a full form based question. So is it A, International Assembly for Impact Assessment, B, Indian Assembly for Impact Assessment, C, International Association for Impact Assessment, or D, Indian Association for Impact Assessment? Okay, so the correct answer is C, that is IAIA stands for International Association for Impact Assessment. And this is a global network which does best practices in the use of impact assessment for informed decision making regarding policies, programs, plans, and projects. So the correct answer is C, that is International Association for Impact Assessment, is the full form for IAIA. Moving on to the next question. EIA is a systematic process which involves a number of steps. Order the following. So you have to select the correct order. So the first is the first step and so forth as we move towards the option. So the correct order is D, that is first you have screening where you see whether an EIA is required or needed for this project or not. Then you do scoping, that is which impacts and issues should be considered. Then you do impact prediction. So what are the different activities which are undertaken during the different construction or development stage? How are they going to affect the environmental parameters? And what sort of impacts are going to result out of it? So you predict and evaluate those impacts. And then lastly, you have the review where the AIA report is reviewed by a committee and then it gives some sort of decision whether it has been accepted or you can go forward with the development or not. So the correct answer is D. That is first you have screening, scoping, impact prediction, and then review. Later, you also have post-decision monitoring and auditing. And in between, you have public consultation and participation happening in all the different stages. Okay, moving on to the next question. So match the typology of environmental impact of Group A with the characteristics of the impact in Group B. So you have different types of impacts mentioned in Group A column, and in Group B, we have different examples or characteristics of those impacts. Okay, so the correct answer is B. So that direct impact is effluent discharge in the river leading to deterioration of water quality. So when you have direct discharge of wastewater into your waste or industry water into your water bodies, it causes direct pollution. So this is a direct impact coming out of this uh, direct impact on water. Then Q, indirect impact, it matches with 4. It is the deterioration of water quality leading to health impact. So because of this discharge of river wastewater into the river, it leads to water quality has degraded. So that is the direct impact. But the indirect impact is on the human health who are consuming this water from this river. So the example for indirect impact is 4. Then reversible impact is something which can be reversed. So cutting of trees in the project area. So you can plant new saplings in that project area. So you can get, so this is a reversible impact. So R matches with 1. And then irreversible impact is the extinction of species where you, where the entire number of that particular species has become extinct and they cannot be revived back. So S matches with 4. So the correct answer is B, that is P matches with 3, Q matches with 4, R matches with 1, and S matches with 2. So moving on to the next question. State true or false, resilience is about being protective rather than developing the ability to deal and cope with abrupt changes. Is this the correct statement for resilience? Okay, so the given statement is false. Resilience is about developing the ability to deal and cope with abrupt changes. It's not about being protective. So the given statement is false. Moving on to the next question. Match the cumulative impacts categories mentioned in Group A with their descriptions in Group B. So in Group A, we have a lot of categories of cumulative impacts. And in Group B, we have their descriptions. So you need to match Group A with Group B. So the correct answer is C, that is time crowded is when impacts are so close in time that the effect of one are not dissipated before the next one occurs. That is two or three activities which are happening simultaneously and are causing different kind of impacts. They are happening in the same time. So this is time crowded cumulative impacts. Then space crowded cumulative impacts are where impacts of various activities are too closely spatially placed. That is, different activities are generating different impacts, but they are all together present in the same geographical location. So those are space crowded cumulative impacts. So Q matches with 1. Then nibbling is an incremental erosion of a resource till there's a significant change or completely used up. So that is nibbling. So R matches with 2. And then synergistic cumulative impacts are when different type of impacts interact to produce qualitatively and quantitatively different impacts. Okay, so S matches with 3. So the correct answer is C. That is P matches with 4, Q matches with 1, R matches with 2, and S matches with 3. Moving on to the next question. The population bomb in 1968, which warned of the dangers of overpopulation, such as mass starvation, societal problems, environmental deterioration, was written by A. Paul Ehrlich, B. Rachel Carson, C. Michael Pollan, or D. Paul Hawken. So the correct answer is A. That is Paul Ehrlich wrote the book The Population Bomb in 1968, and this book discussed the dangers of overpopulation, such as mass starvation, societal problems, environmental deterioration, and so on. So this was one of the significant books which came out in 1968. So A. Paul Ehrlich is the correct answer. Moving on to the next question. So the Cuyahoga River incident in Ohio, USA in 1969 is known for A, fire because of increased sediment, B, fire because of pollution, C, because of water sports, or D, because of flood. So the correct answer is B, that is, it was fire because of pollution. So the river was so heavily polluted that it caught fire in 1968, and this was one of these events which led to the formation of the EPA and Ohio Environmental Protection Agency. Okay. So B, fire because of pollution is the correct answer. Moving on to the next question. State true or false. In India, screening for EIA is done on the basis of a defined list, which provides types and threshold values of the size of the project. Is the statement true or false? So the given statement is true. We have a defined Schedule A, which gives us in the Environmental Protection Act. Under that, we have the defined list of projects for which we have to do EIA. And this is done on the basis of the type of project and the threshold value or the size of the project. So the given statement is true. That's how we screen AIA projects in India. Moving on, in India, when was the right to fair compensation and transparency in land acquisition, rehabilitation, and resettlement act came into existence? Was it A, 2013, B, 2014, C, 2015, or D, 2016? So the correct answer is A, 2013. That is the Right to Fair Compensation and Transparency in Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act. It was enforced in 2013. So A, 2013 is the correct answer. Moving on. So in the ESPO EIA convention, what are the major obligations of parties? A, to assess the environmental impact of certain activities at an early stage of planning, or B, general obligation of states to notify and consult each other on all major projects under consideration that are likely to have a significant adverse environmental impact across boundaries. So which of these two statements are the major obligations of parties in the ESPO convention? So the correct answer is C. That is, both of these statements are the major obligations that the parties have to meet under the ESPO convention. Okay, so C, both A and B are the correct answer. Moving on, the statement environmental impact assessment as a national instrument shall be undertaken for the proposed activities that are likely to have a significant adverse impact on the environment and are subject to a decision of a competent national authority is covered under which principle of the United Nations Forum for Climate Change? Is it A, principle 17, B, principle 18, C, principle 19, or D, principle 20? So the correct answer is principle 17. So principle 17 states that the environmental impact assessment as a national instrument shall be undertaken for proposed activities that are likely to have a significant adverse impact on the environment and are subject to a decision of a competent national authority. So A is the correct answer. Moving on to the next question. Match group 1 with group 2 and choose the correct option. So in group 1, we have environmental protocol agreement or framework, and in group 2, we have their provisions or what is their aim. So the correct answer is B. So Montreal Protocol is for phasing out of substances that deplete the ozone layer. So P matches with 3. Then Paris Agreement is to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees, preferably to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Um, so Q matches with 4. Then REDD is for reducing emissions for deforestation and forest degradation. So R matches with 1. And Kyoto Protocol is for provides a sort of a alternative, which is in the form of emission trading. So S matches with 2. So the correct answer is P matches with 3, Q matches with 4, R matches with 1, and S matches with 2. Moving on, with respect to emission reduction goal, what does NDC stands for? Is it A, nationally determined contributions, B, national development contributions, C, novel development contributions, or D, naturally determined contribution? So again, an abbreviation based question. So the correct answer is A, that is NDC stands for Nationally Determined Contribution. And these are contributions that the different countries have claimed that they are going to meet as per the Paris Agreement. Okay. So A, Nationally Determined Contributions is the correct answer. Moving on, which of the following powers are conferred to MOEFCC by EPA Act of 1986? So MOEFCC is Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So the powers are first environmental clearance, second eco-sensitive zone, three coastal regulation zone, or four infrastructure development. So under the EPA Act of 1986, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has the powers of environmental clearance, eco-sensitive zone, and coastal regulation zone. So 1, 2, and 3 are the correct answers. So B is the correct option. Whereas infrastructure development is not a power that the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has under the EPA Act 1986. Moving on, state true or false. Primary environmental policies are the ones whose primary goals are concerned with environment, while secondary policies are the ones whose primary goals are non-environmental. Okay, so statement A true or B false. Okay, so the given statement is true. So primary environment policy includes environmental primary policy goals, whereas secondary environment policies have prime non-environmental goals. So A true is the correct answer. Moving on, match the terms with its meaning. So we have different terms, but again, definition based match the following. And in group 2, we have their meaning. So the correct answer is D, that is cluster of policies, a collection of policy instruments, all designed to achieve a common goal or set of intentions. So P matches with 2. Then command and control includes technology, emissions or ecosystem restoration standards, record keeping and reporting requirements, or limits on manufacture, trade, or use of specific chemicals or products, each of which are implemented through permitting and enforcement programs. So Q matches with 3. Then planning regimes or strategies or action plans designed to achieve ambient air quality standards or objectives to attain emission ceilings, combined with analysis and environmental impacts assessment. So R matches with 4. And then market interventions include economic instruments such as taxes, fees, or markets for tradable emission rights, as well as loans and subsidies. So S matches with 1. So the correct answer is D, that is P matches with 2, Q matches with 3, I matches with 4, and S matches with 1. Next question. Select the mandatory law, policies, or guidelines on air quality for the country in the following options. A, National Ambient Air Quality Standard as Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act of 1981. B, WHO guideline values. C, Environmental Health and Safety, EHS guidelines. Or D, Good International Industry Practice, GIIP. Okay, so the correct answer is A, that is the National Ambient Air Quality Standards, NAAQS. Is a mandatory standard which we have to meet in India as per the Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act of 1981, whereas all the other options are voluntary laws or guidelines which can be met. So A is the mandatory standard. So again, look for key terms in your question. So mandatory was the key term in this question. Moving on to the next question. Select true or false. The CPCB provides air quality standards for ecologically sensitive areas also. Is the statement true or false? So the statement is true. CPCB provides air quality standards for eco-sensitive areas also. Parameters related with odor are abbreviated as A, FDIOL, B, DOLFI, C, FIDOL, or D, IDOLF. So in what order are these parameters abbreviated? These are parameters related with odor. So the correct answer is C, that is FIDOL. So F stands for frequency, how often an individual exposed to odor. I is intensity, how strong is the odor, the strength of the odor. D is duration, how long they have been exposed to this odor. O is odor unpleasantness, so the characteristics of that odor, how unpleasant or neutral or pleasant it is. And then last L is location. So FIDOL, FIDOL, is parameters related with odor. So C is the correct answer. Moving on to the next question. Match the following global environment timeline. So we have different years and we have events which have happened in these years. So you need to match group A with group B. So the correct answer is C. That is in 2005, we have the Kyoto Protocol. 2004, we have the Wangari Maathai, the first environmentalist to be awarded a Nobel Prize. Then 2015, we had the Paris Agreement, COP21, Conference of Parties 21. And then 2007, we had the United Nations Climate Change Conference in Bali. So the correct answer is P matches with 2, Q matches with 1, R matches with 4, and S matches with 3. So C is the correct answer. Moving on, the objectives of NAMP, National Air Quality Monitoring Program of India, are the following. 1, to determine status and trends of ambient air quality. 2, to ascertain whether the prescribed ambient air quality standards are violated. 3, to identify non-attainment cities. Or 4, to obtain the knowledge and understanding necessary for developing preventive and corrective measures. So which of the followings are the objectives for NAMP? Okay, so the correct answer is all. That is, all of these were the objectives of the National Air Quality Monitoring Program of India. So D, 1, 2, 3, 4 is the correct answer. Moving on, the process through which methyl mercury is passed along the food chain is called A, bioaccumulation, B, bioconservation, C, bioacceleration, or D, biomagnification. So the correct answer is D, that is biomagnification. So biomagnification is when the methyl mercury is passed along the food chain via process, whereas bioaccumulation is when organisms accumulate high concentration of mercury over time. Okay, so D, biomagnification is the correct answer. Moving on, state true or false. According to the International Association for Impact Assessment, EIA is defined as the process of identifying, predicting, evaluating, and mitigating the biophysical, social, and other relevant effects of proposed development proposals prior to major decisions being taken and commitments made. Is the statement true or false? So we are looking at a particular definition of EIA from the agency IAIA. International Association for Impact Assessments. So the given statement is true. This is actually the definition for AIA, which IAIA has given. So A, true is the correct answer. Moving on to the next question. Say true or false. AIA started in India in 1976-77 when the Planning Commission directed the Department of Science and Technology DST to assess the River Valley projects from the point of view of the environment. It was later extended for all those projects that required approval from the Public Investment Board. So is the statement true or false? So the given statement is true. AIA was started in India in 1976 to 77 because the Planning Commission asked DST to access a River Valley project for from the environmental point of view. And then it was later extended to all kind of projects which will require this kind of clearance. So A, true is the correct answer. Moving on to the next question. Language impact assessment, LIA, involves the systematic criteria-based assessment of the likely impact of development or the project on language and community. Is the statement true or false? So the given statement is true. Language impact assessment involves a systematic criteria-based assessment of the likely impact of development or a project on the language and community. So the given statement is true. So A is the correct answer. Moving on, the National Environment Policy Act, NEPA, in the USA was signed into law on January 1st, 1970. Is the statement true or false? So the statement is true. NEPA came into action, was signed as a law on January 1st, 1970 in US. So moving on, State true or false. India is not a signatory of the Convention on Biological Diversity, CBD. Is the statement true or false? So this statement is false. India became a party to the Convention on Biological Diversity, CBD, in February of 1994. Okay, so false. The statement is false. Moving on. Which of the following provides key codes of practice related to ecology? One, Performance Standards IFC, International Finance Corporation. The European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, EBRD. Third, Asian Development Bank, ADB, or African Development Bank, AFDB. Okay, so the correct answer is D. That is all of the above. All of these agencies or codes have give codes for practices relating to ecology. So D, all of the above is the correct answer. Moving on, match the Indian institutes mentioned in Group A with the responsibilities in coastal areas in Group B. So we have different agencies in Group B and in their responsibilities or role in Group B. So the correct answer is C, that is Ministry of Environment and Forests is responsible for management of resources in the coastal water. Nodal ministry with major responsibility for protecting the marine environment and includes implementation of legislative measures in this region. So P matches with 4. Then Ministry of Agriculture is responsible for the development of fisheries, aquaculture, and fish processing. So Q matches with 3. Then Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas matches with 1, which is offshore installations, coastal refineries, and pipelines. So they're responsible for those. And then Ministry of Defense or the Indian Coast Guard is responsible for pollution response measures, including oil pollution. So S matches with 2. So C, P matches with 4, Q matches with 3, R matches with 1, and S matches with 2 is the correct answer. Next question, match the terms in Group A with their description in Group B. So we have definitions and terms. So the correct answer is D, that is sanctuaries are for the purpose of protecting, propagating, or developing wildlife or its environment. The areas having adequate ecological, fauna, flora, geomorphological, natural, or geological significance. So those are sanctuaries. So P matches with 3. Then national parks are areas of ecological, faunal, floral, geomorphological, or zoological association or importance and may be declared for protecting, propagating, or developing wildlife or its environment. So Q matches with 1. Then conservation reserves are areas which are owned by the state government and are adjacent to or linked to protected areas. So R matches with 4. And the community reserve are protected areas, privately owned land either by an individual or the entire community, which includes wildlife resources. So S matches with 2. So the correct answer is D. Moving on to the next question. State true or false. The Nagoya Protocol on Access and Benefit Sharing, ABS, aims at fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from the utilization of genetic resources, including by appropriate access to genetic resources and by appropriate transfer of relevant technologies. So is the statement true or false? So the given statement is true. That is actually what the Nagoya Protocol on Access and Benefit Sharing aims at. So it's one that you share genetic information, and two, you also share technologies and transfer of these technologies. So A true is the correct answer. Moving on, the HE targets are related to A, conservation of energy, B, conservation of water, C, conservation of biodiversity, or D, none of the above. So the HE targets, so the correct answer is C, that is conservation of biodiversity. So the HE targets are related to conservation of biodiversity. And it has 20 global HE biodiversity targets, which you can read about. So moving on, which institute is responsible for management of resources in the coastal water? Nodal ministry with major responsibilities for protecting marine environment and includes implementation of legislative measures. A, Ministry of Environment and Forest, B, Ministry of Agriculture, C, Department of Ocean Development, and D, Ministry of Water Resources. So the correct answer is A, that is the Ministry of Environment and Forests is responsible for management of resources in the coastal water. For management of resources in the coastal water, nodal ministry. It is the nodal ministry with major responsibility for protecting marine environment and includes implementation of legislative measures. Okay, moving on. Which CRS area is known as intertidal zone? Is it A, CRZ1B? Is it B, CRZ2A, C, CRZ1A, or D, CRZ2B? So the correct answer is A, that is CRZ 1B is the intertidal zone as per the Coastal Regulation Zone Notification of 2018. So A is the correct answer. Moving on, which country has not taken part in project National Capital Accounting and Valuation of the Ecosystem Services? Is it A, Brazil, B, China, C, India, or D, USA? So the correct answer is D, USA. So the National Capital Accounting and Valuation of Ecosystem Services, the NCAPS project. 5 countries have taken part in this project. So these countries are Brazil, China, South Africa, Mexico, and India. So D, USA has not taken part in the NCAPS project. Moving on, the foundation for the effective EIA system are 1. Clear basis in law and regulation. 2. Clear basis of objectives and statement. 3. Mandatory compliance and enforcement. And 4. Comprehensive scope of application to proposals with potentially significant impact. So which of these statements are the foundations for effective EIA system? So the correct answer is D. That is, all of these are foundations for the effective EIA system. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That is D is the correct answer. Moving on, the types of policy instrument. 1. Regulations and regulatory policy standard. 2. Market-based instruments. 3. Research and development. And 4. Treaties and agreements. So which of the following options are the types of policy instruments? So again, the correct answer is D. That is, all of these are the types of policy instruments. So 1, 2, 3, 4. D is the correct answer. Moving on, what does UNEP in the context of EIA stands for? Is it a United Nations Environmental Program, B, United Nations Ecological Program, C, United Nations Environment Program, or D, United Nations Ecology Program? So the correct answer is C, that is United Nations Environment Program. UNEP stands for the option C. Next question, state true or false. Garibaldi and Turner in 2004 proposed the concept of cultural keystone species. So the given statement is true. They defined that culturally salient species that shape in a major way the cultural identity of a people, and their importance is reflected in the fundamental role these species play in diet, materials, medicine, and or spiritual practices. So these are keystone species. So A, true is the correct answer. Moving on, state true or false. Human health risk assessment, HHRA, is related with human exposure to chemical contaminants. Is the statement true or false? So the statement is true. So the HHRA, WHO's Human Health Risk Assessment, HHRA, is related with human exposure to chemical contaminants. So it involves identifying hazards, assessing exposure, characterizing hazards, and then characterizing risk. So A, true is the correct answer. Moving on, which of the following lending institutions require health effects assessment? First, International Finance Corporation, IFC. 2, African Development Banks. 3, Asia Development Bank. And 4th, Inter-American Development Bank. Okay, so the correct answer is D. That is, all of these lending institutions, they require health effects assessment. So D, all of the above is the correct answer. Match the terms given in Group A with their description given in Group B. So we have definitions in Group A and their description in Group B. Okay, so the correct answer is D. That is, eminent domain is a right of government or its agent to expropriate private property for public use with payment of compensation. So P matches with 4. Then economic displacement is the loss of income streams or means of livelihood resulting from land acquisition or obstructed access to resources, land, water, or forest, resulting from the construction or operation of a project or its associated facilities. So Q matches with 1. Then compensation is payment in cash or in kind for an asset or a resource that is acquired or affected by a project at the time that asset needs to be replaced. So R matches with 2. And then host population is people living in or around areas to which people physically displaced by a project will be resettled, who in turn may be affected by the resettlement. So S matches with 3. So the correct answer is D. That is, P matches with 4, Q matches with 1, R matches with 2, and S matches with 3. Moving on, state true or false. Right to property is a fundamental right in India. So the statement is false. Right to property is not a fundamental right, but it's a constitutional right under Article 300A of the Constitution. So B, false, is the correct answer. Moving on, the Right to Fair Compensation and Transparency in Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act 2013. It makes provision for dash A, social impact assessment, B, climatic impact assessment, C, biophysical impact assessment, or D, health impact assessment. So the Right to Fair Compensation and Transparency Act, Transparency in Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act of 2013, it makes provisions for social impact assessment. So A is the correct answer. Moving on, the Right to Fair Compensation and Transparency in Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act of 2013. It makes provisions for the following: A, prior consent to payment of compensation; 3, return of unutilized land; or D, for all of the above. So the correct answer is D, all of the above. So the Act, it makes provisions for prior consent, payment of compensation, and return of unutilized land. So all of the above is the correct answer. Technically, the options are slightly skewed in this case. Moving on, match the terms given in Group A with their description in Group B. So you have terms in Group A and their descriptions in Group B. So the correct answer is B, that is, social license to operate is a procedural mechanism developed to assist in ensuring the right of indigenous peoples to self-determination. Then free, prior, and informed consent, Q, matches with 2, which is the level of acceptance or approval of the activities of an organization by its stakeholders, especially local impacted communities. Next question, match the EIA typologies as given by World Bank Guide 1997 for road projects of Group A with a description in Group B. So Group A, we have different terms, and in Group B, we have their description. So the correct answer is A. So project-specific EIA is assessing individual new roads or public transport infrastructure. So P matches with 2. Then programmatic EIA is examining a number of individual projects that may be delivered together as a package or program. So Q matches with 1. Then sectoral EIA is strategically assessing all projects of a certain type, such as transport infrastructure, in a relatively large geographical area. So R matches with 4. And then regional EIA is examining all the planned projects within a specified geographical area at the subnational level. So S matches with 3. So A is the correct answer. That is P matches with 2, Q matches with 1, R matches with 4, and S matches with 3. Moving on, in UK web tag guidance, the full form of tag is A, Transport Advisory Group; B, Transport Analysis Guidance; C, Technical Analysis Guidance; or D, Technology Advisory Group. So the correct answer is B, that is Transport Analysis Guidance. So web tag stands for Transport Analysis Guidance. So B is the correct answer. Moving on, match the theme in Group A with their description in Group B. So we have different terms and their description. So the correct answer is C. So gross ecosystem product, GEP, is the total value of final ecosystem goods and services supplied to human well-being in a region annually, and can be measured in terms of biophysical value and monetary value. So P matches with 3. Then access and benefit sharing, ABS, is a system in which genetic resources may be accessed and benefits resulting from their use shared by users with countries that provide them. So Q matches with 1. And then payment for ecosystem services, PES program, is a market-based approach used to incentivize conservation-related activities. So R matches with 2. So the correct answer is C, that is P matches with 3, Q matches with 1, and R matches with 2. Next question. Impact prediction in EIA involves identification of the following: A, geographical extent of impacts; B, duration of impact; C, prediction over the life of a project; or D, all of the above. So the correct answer is D, all of the above. All of the A, B, and C are involve are involved in identification when we are doing impact prediction in EIA. So D, all of the above is the correct answer. Moving on, state true or false. The superimposition of an image onto a photograph in order to create a realistic representation of how the proposed structures will appear in the landscape is called photomontage. Is the statement true or false? So the given statement is true. A photomontage is the superimposition of an image onto a photograph in order to create a realistic representation of how the proposed structure will appear in the landscape. Moving on, a stochastic model indicate degree of probability of the occurrence of a certain event by specifying the statistical probability that a certain number of events will take place in a given area and a time interval. So is the statement true or false? So the given statement is true. That is the definition of stochastic models. Moving on, according to the table, if there's a loss of life in the project, will the trade-off be acceptable? The options are A, acceptable trade-off, or B, non-acceptable trade-off. So the correct answer is B, non-acceptable trade-off. That is loss of human life is a non-acceptable trade-off in a project. Okay, moving on. Match the terms given in group A with their description in group B. So we have different terms and their description. So the correct answer is D, that is contingent valuation is people are asked what they are willing to pay for keeping X, example, a good view of the historic building, or preventing Y, or what they are willing to accept for losing A or tolerating B. So that is contingent valuation. So P matches with 3. Then contingent ranking or stated preference is people are asked to rank their preference for various environmental goods, which may then be valued by linking the preference to the real price or something traded in the market. Example, house prices. So Q matches with 4. Then indirect market prices are the dose response approach to seek to measure the effect, that is the value of loss of fish stock resulting from an environmental change, that is oil pollution from a fish farm, by using the market value of the output involved. So R matches with 2. And then effect on production is when the market exists for the goods and services involved. The environmental impact can be represented by the value of the change in output that it causes. So S matches with 1. So the correct answer is D, that is P matches with 3, Q matches with 4, R matches with 2, and S matches with 1. Moving on, match the following terms in Group A with their description in Group B. So we have terms consultation and participation, and we need to match them. So the correct answer is B, that is consultation is exercises involving a passive audience. The public's views are solicited, but respondents have little active influence over any resulting decisions. So P matches with 2. And then participation is approaches that give a more active role to the public in influencing the plan development and approval. So Q matches with 1. So the correct answer is B, that is P matches with 2 and Q matches with 1. Moving on, state true or false. The European Union 2017 C is guidance is on scoping. So is the statement A true or false? So the given statement is false. The European Union 2017 C guidance is not on scoping, but it is on case-by-case screening tools. So the given statement is false. Moving on, match the terms given in Group A with their description in Group B. So we have terms in Group A and description in Group B. So the correct answer is D, that is monitoring is where you measure and record all the variables or parameters of your concern at certain intervals, such as air quality, water quality, noise level, traffic generated, employment created. So these are parameters or variables which you can measure. So P matches with 2. Then environmental impact auditing or evaluation involves comparing the impacts predicted, what was done in EIA report with the actual after implementation. So Q matches with 3. Then environmental management auditing reviews public and private corporate pattern and program for environmental management and the associated risks and liabilities. So R matches with 1. So the correct answer is P matches with 2, Q matches with 3, R matches with 1. Moving on. State true or false. Monitoring in India is mandatory as per the EIA notification of 2006. Is the statement true or false? So the given statement is true. Monitoring in India is mandatory as per the EIA notification of 2006. Moving on, match the following types of impact prediction with examples given. So we have impact prediction models and the examples which are used for these kind of impact prediction models. So the correct answer is C. So hard model, where use of mathematical situation model plays central role, is used for impact predictions in air and noise scenarios. The mixed model, where simulation modeling is complemented and sometimes replaced by technically more low-level approaches, is used for traffic impacts. they make considerable use of modeling, but often with some sample survey inputs. So Q matches with 3. Then soft models, where use of mathematical simulation modeling is virtually non-existent, is used for perception studies. So R matches with 1. So the correct answer is C, that is P matches with 2, Q matches with 3, and R matches with 1. Moving on, 4 levels in increasing public power and public participation methods are: first, information feedback methods; 2, consultation; 3, joint planning; and 4, delegated authority. Okay, so the correct answer is D, that is all the 4 levels of increasing public power in public participation methods. So D, 1, 2, 3, 4 is the correct answer. Next question. For scoping purposes in EIA, a particular atmospheric pollutant will depend upon A, nature and scale of the development; B, sensitivity of the receiving environment; C, baseline conditions of the area under study; and D, all of the above. So the correct answer is D, that is all of the above are used for scoping purpose for determining how a particular atmospheric pollutant will be represented or counted. Moving on. State true or false. With numerical dispersion models, we can calculate how specified emission rates are transformed by the atmospheric processes into pollution concentrations at different distances from the source or sources of the pollution. Is this statement true or false? So the given statement is true. This is the definition for numerical dispersion models as well. So A is the correct answer. Moving on, match the following terms of group A with their description in group B. So these are in examples in relations to predict pollution concentrations for emissions. So we have different kind of sources and examples for those kind of sources. So the correct answer is B, that a single point source include industrial stack or vent. So P matches with 2. Then large number of point sources are ponds, settling tanks, open cast mines, or quarries. So Q matches with 1. Then area sources are construction sites, car parks, motorway service stations, industrial processes with numerous vents, urban areas, county regions, and storage lagoons. So R matches with 4. Then line sources are open roads, street canyons, or railways. So S matches with 3. So B is the correct answer. Moving on. The equation of return period or the occurrence interval, which tells us the chances of the same flow of rain increasing in a year, is written as, where P is probability of exceedance. A, return period is 1 by P; B, return period is P by 2; C, return period is P by 4; and D, return period is P by 6. So the correct answer is A, that is return period is 1 by P, is the formula for determining the return period, or the equation used for calculating return period. So A is the correct answer. Moving on. The correct formula of Thornweight and Mather 1955 method to estimate water budget is, where P is precipitation, R is surface runoff, G is groundwater flow, ET is evapotranspiration, and delta S is change in storage in a specified time period. So the correct answer is C, that is P minus R minus G, that is precipitation minus surface runoff minus groundwater flow minus evapotranspiration, or ET, is equal to delta S, that is change in storage in a specified time period. So C is the correct answer, which is used for calculating water budget. Okay, next question. Match the following type of map with their significance. Group A is solid maps and drift maps. And in group B, we have their significance. So the correct answer is B, that is solid maps show only pre-quaternary rocks. P matches with 2. And drift maps show superficial quaternary deposits that have been laid down more recently after being moved by wind, water, or ice. So Q matches with 1. So the correct answer is P matches with 2 and Q matches with 1. Next question, match the following terms of group A with their description in group B. So in group A, we have climate change, vulnerability, climate projection, and adaptation. So the correct answer is B, that is climate change is a change in the state of climate that can be identified by changes in the mean and or variability of its properties, and that persists for an extended period, typically decades or longer. So P matches with 3. Then vulnerability is the propensity or predisposition to be adversely affected. So Q matches with 4. Then climate projection is the simulated response of the climate system to a scenario of future emissions or concentration of greenhouse gases and aerosols generally derived using climate models. So R matches with 2. And then adaptation is the process of adjustment to actual or expected climate and its effects. So S matches with 1. Okay, so next question. Match the following terms of group A with their description in group B. So the correct answer is A. That is, adaptive capacity is the ability of systems, institutions, humans, and other organisms to adjust to potential damage, to take advantage of opportunities, or to respond to consequences. So B matches with 2. Then sink, carbon sinks is any process, activity, or mechanism that removes a greenhouse gas, an aerosol, or a precursor of a greenhouse gas or aerosol from the environment. So Q matches with 3. Then greenhouse gas, GHGs, are those gaseous constituents of the atmosphere, both natural and anthropogenic, that absorb and emit radiation at specific wavelengths within the spectrum of infrared radiations emitted by Earth's surface, atmosphere, and clouds. So R matches with 4. And then mitigation of climate change is a human intervention to reduce the sources or enhance the sinks of greenhouse gases. So S matches with 1. So the correct answer is A, that is P matches with 2, Q matches with 3, R matches with 4, and S matches with 1. Moving on, a state true or false water quality assessment desktop study involves catchment boundary area and drainage pattern and information on geomorphology such as slopes, geology, soil, and land use, which can be determined from the base maps, geological and soil survey maps. Is the statement true or false? So this statement is true. This is actually what is done in the desktop studies relating to water quality assessment. So A is the correct answer. Moving on. State true or false, scoping in and scoping out with respect to climate change in EIA process mostly depends nation to nation based on their legislative provisions. Is the statement true or false? So the given statement is true. For climate change, scoping in and scoping out depends on nation to nation based on what are their legislative provisions relating to that. So A is the correct answer. Moving on, select the following issues to consider in scoping for climate change adaptation. A, nature of project, its location and resilience to climate change. B, climate-related parameters likely to influence the project. C, anticipated changes to those climatic parameters over the life of the project. Or D, all of the above. So for scoping for climate change adaptation, all of the above is the correct answer. That is, we consider all of the issues mentioned in A to C. So D is the correct answer. Moving on, which of the following information are considered for baseline studies for climate change adaptation? A, historic or past climate conditions. B, current conditions at the time of the assessment. C, future climatic conditions, medium and longer term. Or D, all of the above. So D, all of the above is the correct answer. We consider all of the options, that is historic, past conditions, current conditions, and future conditions for doing baseline studies for climate change adaptation. So D, all of the above is the correct answer. Moving on. Which of the following are the simple techniques used for ecological survey? A, ecologist field walking and visual assessment. B, recording. C, thematic mapping. Or D, all of the above. So the correct answer is D, all of the above. So simple techniques for doing ecological survey are for ecologist field walking, visual assessment, recording, and thematic mapping. So D is the correct answer. Next question. Habitats that support a community which contains a larger proportion of non-native or introduced fauna and flora, or where human activities have modified the area's primary ecological functions is called A, natural habitat, B, modified habitat, C, critical habitat, or D, none of the above. So the correct answer is B, modified habitat. So the question states the definition for modified habitat. So B is the correct answer. Moving on, identify the method as shown in the image, which is used for impact modeling of flora. So the options are sample plot methods, B, transect and line intercepts methods, C, plotless sampling methods, or D, speciesless method. So the correct answer is B, that is the image shows transect and line intercept method. So we calculate how many plant species are falling on a particular line and then calculate the percentage of that particular species on that line. Moving on. Match the following methods for impact modeling of biological environment given in group A with the application given in group B. So the correct answer is D, that is speciesless method is used for list of animal communities observed directly. So P matches with 4. Then count index methods, roadside and aerial count methods are used for observations of animals by driving them past trained observers. So Q matches with 3. Then removal methods are used for number of species captured. R matches with 1. And plotless sampling methods are used as a mean point plant distance, mean area per plant. So S matches with 2. So the correct answer is D, that is P matches with 4, Q matches with 3, R matches with 1, and S matches with 2. Next question. DAFOR is used for species abundant measures. What does DAFOR stand for? So the correct answer is A, that is D is dominant, A abundant, F frequent, O occasional, and R rare. So these are for giving a particular term for a particular species, stating their abundance. So A is the correct answer. Moving on. What is the full form of PES? Is it A, payments for ecosystem services, B, placement of ecosystem services, C, position of ecosystem services, or D, pollutants of ecosystem services? So the correct answer is A, that is PES stands for payments for ecosystem services. Next question, state true or false. Single beam echo sounding and multi beam echo sounding are techniques used for collection of bathymetric data. Is the statement true or false? So the given statement is true. So two techniques which are used for collection of bathymetric data are single beam echo sounding and multi beam echo sounding. So A, true is the correct answer. Okay, thank you so much for attending this extra problem solving session, and all the best for your final examination. And if you have any feedback, you can give it in the feedback forms. And with that, I would like to close the session.